Welcome to the Spirit of Independence. On today's episode of the Spirit of Independence, we look at the work of Ricardo Lacombe. With no professional training, Ricardo has worked in such diverse areas as corporate filmmaking, music videos and documentaries, leading up to his current passion project on the Great White Shark. We're going to need a bigger boat.
My name's Ricardo Lacombe. I'm an independent filmmaker from the city of Sheffield, and I pretty much do everything: producing, directing, editing, visual effects, the music, make the tea, clean the floors, get the sandwiches in, whatever needs doing to get your film made, the whole package. My biggest inspiration by far, cliched as it might be these days, was Steven Spielberg. And there's a reason he's at the top of his game. There's a reason this guy's like 70s or pushing 70 and still doing films that has embarrassed young filmmakers coming up. You know, he's still got the energy and drive for it. It's because he's a master at what he does. And you think of all those films growing up, like E.T. and Jaws and then later on like Jurassic Park. I remember the first time you saw Jurassic Park, it's like this takes cinema and does something totally new with it and just pushes it another level. The first film I ever remember seeing as a child was Jaws. I used to live in Canada. I remember being in the back of a station wagon car in a drive-in theatre watching Jaws. I don't remember the story or anything. I just remember being terrified, by the shark and stuff, but also amazed by this thing up on the screen. But I didn't get into filmmaking. That really didn't come until by accident later. I think where it started happening as I started shooting home videos. And I remember coming back from a trip in Egypt, and I had some footage of this truck that was bombing down the side of the Nile. There's dust up everywhere. I don't know where he was going. This guy was absolutely just going for it in his truck. And I took it home and started making home videos. And I remember sticking some of John Williams' Raiders of the Lost Ark music to it. And it's like, wow, it's like this marriage of this picture and this sound. It's almost like something out of the movies. This is amazing. And I think that's probably where I started messing about with home videos, to the point of not just sticking a couple of shots together and putting some cheesy titles on, but actually, can I start telling a bit of a story with my own footage? I think that was probably the seed that was laid. I find it quite difficult when I started out that I wanted to do all these things, and I couldn't accept that I had to go and find someone to do them for me. I want to edit a film, I want to edit the film. I want a special effects shot, a digital effects shot. How does that work? I need to know. So it's going out and finding that info and getting jazzed about. I want to know how it's done. I don't just want to pass the work off to somebody and he comes back and you're like, that's amazing. I want to know how it's done. So that led quite early into digital effects, because I was using Adobe products and I'd always been using Premiere for my editing, but kept seeing loads of links to After Effects this, After Effects that. How's After Effects? So I started looking at that and thinking, wow, this is powerful, this does some great stuff. Start learning it, sitting up late night, and this was the old days. You used to have to get a book, manual, and sit and learning how to use After Effects, and suddenly you've got green screen, or you can put a fancy title on something and it just adds something extra to your piece. So quite early on I started working again with other filmmakers. Started working with a guy, Theo Garvey, fantastic independent filmmaker in Sheffield, absolutely just does his thing for action movies. And he was working on a project of ours, doing some prosthetic makeup on a little film that we did. And we got talking, and he's shooting this action thing, and he's shooting on camcorder like we were back in the day, but he wanted like a freaking Apache helicopter coming in. It's like, we're Sheffield filmmakers shooting on camcorders, you want an Apache helicopter? Yeah, we can do that. How do you do it? Well, he's a great model maker, so he's got all these little models all painted, fine detail. I knew my green screen work from effects work, so it's like, do what? We're just trying to make this work. So we ended up in my apartment with a green screen, with a helicopter on a chopstick that I thought I'll get rid of somehow later. I don't know how. And we were watching shots that he'd shot before on camcorder, just scenic shots where the helicopter should be. And trying to mimic the movement with the camera or the model, and the two of us together, I think we crafted a way of doing it, and then my effects knowledge of how to composite that into the shot, and it was pretty cool for camcorder work. I kind of fell into filmmaking by accident. A friend of mine was on a Channel 5, UK Channel 5 TV show about poker, and we jokingly said when he'd come off the show that someone should make like a spoof documentary about this guy and his TV character trying to get back on TV and back into the world of poker. So I had a camera, a little Sony retail camera, and just thought, why don't we just try and make it? Why don't we just sit and try and write a script and see how it works? And I didn't know how to make a film. I didn't know how you shot. I didn't know how you edit. Went out and learnt these things, go online, a few tutorials, talk to other filmmakers, and I found myself just taking footage that we just shot for the fun of it and starting to craft it into something that looked good to us. Amazingly, off the back of that, we shot this 80-minute spoof documentary, and we sent it to, we wanted to sell it online, sell it to like poker forums and things, and we actually asked for the rights to do that from the guys who produced the TV show for Channel 5. Long story short, bizarrely, the poker company behind the show actually came back after a long time, unexpectedly, and said, we might like to see about broadcasting this abroad. We were like, are you kidding me? We made this like on a cheap camcorder, you know, hissing microphones, everything, really raw guerrilla filmmaking with your mates. And to get somebody saying we might want to broadcast this was just insane to us. So we started thinking, okay, maybe we can do something with this. And we thought, why don't we buy some decent gear? Why don't we start shooting HD? And why don't we start looking around trying to get a commission and actually make this work? What we actually ended up doing, very luckily, is we entered a competition in Sheffield where they matched local filmmakers with local bands, and you had 2 weeks to go make a video. I don't know if it's still running, but it was a really good competition. We were very fortunate. We hooked up with a Sheffield band called Outroads, and we started working with them on that video, but then started producing more like promo videos for them and music videos. The more videos were made for them, and a lot of their lyrics tended to be quite happy sounding songs with really dark lyrics underneath when you actually listen to them. And about that time we were also working with an actor from Lancashire, I believe, who used to be on Brookside, remember the old soap, and we were working with him on a couple of projects and just getting going, but his life story was he had a terminal illness. He still has. He's got a malformation in his brain that could kill him any second. But the guy is like the most inspiring, funny, outgoing guy. He's just absolutely living his life for what it's worth. And we started seeing a contrast, or rather started seeing a similarity between his life story, which was seemingly very happy and very outgoing with a very dark sort of undertone, and this band making music with the same kind of message. So Brother, which is a film that we made that I was immensely proud of, it's not really had an audience, but it was a fantastic piece of trying to take the documentary format and crossing over a little bit and doing something different with it. So we had documentary, but we integrated the band's music, and we had little set pieces within there that kind of enhanced where we just finished a segment of the documentary. And on the back of that, we also shot that, and as we were also shooting that, we also did a live DVD for the band on the same day we finished shooting. So it was literally, we had a half an hour break between shooting scenes for Brother and going straight into shooting a live DVD for the band. So that time when we were working with Outroads and coming up with all these sub-projects around it was just really inspiring to let other projects come off, you know, the original idea that we had and just let them grow.
Time for definition. Time to take it up a notch. Anticipation fuels my focus, and a cloud of breath signals my arrival. The gym stands dark and dormant, waiting for what's about to come. I've come here to take it up a level. I'll show these walls, this floor, these bags and ropes, just what I'm made of.
Iron Boxing was a classic example of an indie filmmaker ourselves making something purely for the fun of it, with no intention. We weren't getting paid, we were funding most of it ourselves, we were blagging the facilities, we just got a lot of goodwill, a lot of talented people, but that actually led to getting other work, corporate work later, which is a classic thing to do as an indie filmmaker. If you can find the means to go and make the projects you're passionate about, go and make them. Don't worry about where it's going to go later. Don't worry about what your audience is so much, because that piece might end up making some money for you or lead into another job later. And that tends to be how my career, if you want to call it that, has gone. For myself, when I started working freelance and stopped maybe working with a lot of the people I was collaborating with, was because, well, in a nutshell, I wanted to get paid, okay? I'm a filmmaker, yes, I love filmmaking. I've got projects that I've always been very passionate about that we made. Brother was a good example, be it music videos. I shot a music video for a guy called LP, shot in a kitchen on a green screen, but we did all this like rotoscoping animation. You know, these were passion projects, these are things we just wanted to do. Corporate work came in because I started thinking, this is product, okay? When you are making films for corporate money, you know, most filmmakers on the indie scene might say you're selling out, okay? You're taking the corporate cash, but you're getting paid for your work. And you start seeing that the projects that you're doing for the passion of it also are product. A lot of people won't want to look at it that way. A lot of filmmakers will be spitting on the floor right now when I'm saying this. It is product. The film industry is an industry. It is a business. The guy coming along from a studio or from a corporate background who is asking you to make a piece for them, not interested in the high art of it, not interested in your craft. They're interested in money. They want a product that they can sell to get paid for, and that's ultimately what it comes down to. The challenge, if you're going down the corporate route for money instead of trying to scrabble around for funding, which you're probably not going to get in most cases, the challenge is to try and keep your heart of what you're trying to make, the thing you are passionate about, in that project, but realising there's a business side to it as well. And I think for me, looking at the corporate side and getting corporate money to maybe pay for the projects that you're never going to get the money from funding to make, like Brother, or we did an anti-racist piece called I Wonder Who. These are projects that no one's going to give you the money to make, so why not go out and, if it's selling your soul or whatever, use your skills as a filmmaker to go and make product for someone, and then realise that the film that you're making, you could probably treat as product and market it and sell it yourself as well. It's just trying to keep that balance and not selling out too much, if that makes sense. Yeah, corporate work tended to come in from just working with, say, like a local band. Someone sees your video, a local restaurant, shooting an advert for them. You're building your skills on how to not make, a drama or a comedy. You're starting now to have a purpose of what's the end goal of this piece. Corporate work for me came about when I'd got the film Boxing, and I'd also got a music video for a local rap guy called LP, called Paper Planes, and I got those two pieces, and a friend of mine had actually worked for a company who was doing some work for Apple, and I managed to blag an email address of someone I could start pestering to try and maybe pick up some freelance work. Shot in a million, you big corporate giant like Apple, but I started hounding them, and I was getting no answers back until I took those two pieces that I'd shot before, Boxing and this LP video. Suddenly I attached them with an email and I got an answer back pretty much instantly. Really like those pieces, maybe we could talk about something you could do for us. Back of my head, ka-ching, there's some money in this as well, but this on your CV is something to have. So I got Apple, did a job for them, and then that led to also talking through another contact, and again networking the same way you would as an indie filmmaker in Sheffield, whether it's in the pub in Sheffield in the early days trying to get a project, or whether it's on email, going out to London when you have to, and getting the corporate cash. It was networking, and that led to also British Airways. I started talking to them about a piece as well, which is still sort of ongoing. So it's the same mentality as local indie filmmaking, just on a bigger scale. You just can't get bamboozled by the bright lights of the big city and it's corporate. And someone's handing you a piece of paper across the table with a budget, and your heart's because you're looking at a figure thinking, I've never been paid that much for a job in my life. I could use that to go and make this other film I want to make. And that's when I started thinking, to hell with it. I'll take that money if it helps me go and fund the things I really, really want to make.
You always see a white shark on the front of the paper and it's always mouth open, teeth. That's how a white shark is portrayed in media. It's a killer, it's a mindless killer. It's always guts, it's always teeth, it's always front page of the headlines. The media will, in the end, kill a white shark, or is killing the white shark, should I say.
Most people only have the knowledge that comes through, you know, reading the newspapers, and then that's normally about shark attacks and all the negative things that happen about it.
So I was looking to pitch a feature documentary, and that's not cheap. You know, however you might cut corners and pull in all the tools you've used when you didn't have any money to make a film, when you were starting off, it's still going to be quite expensive. So I started pitching around using my business mentality for some of that corporate money. Need some backing for this, need some cash, need some better equipment. You know, just to go out there alone on a shark boat, that's going to cost you some money, this isn't cheap. So what I did is I started looking around for corporate backers and got a few reasonably big names interested, surfing companies and energy drinks and that kind of thing, almost getting there but never quite there, and getting a lot of rejections. And then my wife said, why haven't you spoke to GoPro? You're using these GoPro cameras all the time and they're awesome, and sharks, this is like right up their alley, and we're looking on YouTube, we see a bit of a gap because there's not much material that they've got. So I using my business mentality, thinking product again, I put a pitch together for GoPro about this is a real gap in their market. Would they be interested in getting involved on any level, be it some money, some equipment, some backing, just a name with it to help me push it further. And I did them a pitch, absolutely loved it. Came back saying, this sounds great, we'd love to get involved. You're always waiting for that no. So I'm like, okay, we'll get to the next level and start saying, well, here's really what we're trying to do. Totally different conservation message. And they're like, yeah, we still like it. I'm like, okay, we're still in. So I just kept talking to them, and they were on board the whole way. And then basically they came on board with a lot of backing and assistance. A couple of the guys, GoPro guys, was really teaching and sort of helping how to use these cameras, which are a sports camera, no big lenses attached, no zooms, no manual focus. How do you make a film using this kind of camera? Could you push the documentary format to use an action sports cam and shoot 50% of your material on GoPro cameras? That was my pitch to GoPro. Can we do that? And we made this film, Great White Shark Legend, which took us 3 weeks to shoot out there. Took me about 18 months, 2 years to put together, just to get the funding, get the logistics right, get the story there. You know, there was a real heart in it. So GoPro was sort of instrumental in giving us that little extra push to say, you know what, again, we're filmmakers from Sheffield, let's get out on a boat in South Africa and look at freaking great white sharks in your face, you know, can we make that? And we did it. Trying to get the concept of a feature documentary. Again, how do you write a documentary without writing a documentary? You need a story, you've got to have some kind of script to work to, but it's documentary, so how can you do that? So my inspiration from that actually came, and again, this is classic indie filmmaking, this is where you should learn your craft, was on the director's commentary and bonus features for a surfing documentary called Riding Giants, a very well-known surf documentary, and I thought, let's see what these guys are doing. And the guy was talking about how he basically broke down every interview into, transcribed it and started storyboarding it and scripting it into themes and ideas. And so you've got this kind of shooting script to work to, the general sort of story you're trying to tell. Does anything these people are saying in all these interviews and all this footage you've got, can you start sectioning it into little sort of pockets of, that's about conservation, that's about the first time you saw sharks. And I came back with about 300 hours of footage, interviews, footage, everything. Where do you start, you know? Where do you start on a project that big? And I just went straight back to the Riding Giants DVD as soon as we got back. How did this guy do it? And he just followed his craft, followed what he was doing. Throw a few of your own ideas in and adapt it, but that's essentially where I learned how to do that. So started pushing for film festivals. We've got, in Sheffield alone, we've got Europe's biggest documentary festival, DocFest. That was always on the cards, which is next year for us. Started aiming high, going for the biggies, Sundance. We've got acceptance already in Japan Wildlife Film Festival next year, which is, you know, again a great one for us. Here's the key though, don't be put off by the size of the festival you're submitting to. Get yourself organised on things like Without a Box, or Film Freeway, where once you've set up your package, if you like, you've uploaded a screener copy, you've put all the press stuff that goes with it, who did what on the film, a bit of blurb, you can then sit back with your laptop, and every time a new festival submission date comes up, 30 quid, 20, 30 quid, what's that to maybe get yourself in Japan Wildlife Film Festival or potentially Sundance maybe next year, who knows, we're just waiting on that one. So you just need to not be fazed by the size of what you're trying to get it out to, but make sure your film the best quality it can be, and do it with a bit of business sense. Why would a festival want your film? Is it for the art? Is it bollocks? It's for the product. They want something that they can put on a poster, put on a flyer, Sundance Film Festival, Tokyo Film Festival, whatever it is, Great White Shark Legend, wow, that looks interesting, imagine that on the posters and things, it's product. So take your heart and soul of your piece, but try and push it into the big festivals and see what happens. If I had any advice to give anyone who's kind of up and coming, I mean, I'm not a big name, I earn money off some of the projects and things, which is great, but it's not why I do it. If I had advice for someone who was wanting to get into that, is get out there and just experience other people's knowledge. Go out and listen to other filmmakers, regardless of what level they're on. I don't care if they're working, you know, with the mates, going out on an evening and weekend shooting some action movie. I don't care if they're working for a major studio. Get involved with other filmmakers. Go and help out on their shoots. What I love about what you guys are doing with this series is you're pulling all these different kind of people working in Sheffield on independent films. I remember distinctly one of the first sort of teams we hooked up with was you guys, was Deranged. A good moment was a film of yours, Devil's Dusk, because it was hard work, it was bank holiday weekends, it was giving up your evenings and your weekends and pushing your day job to make it work, but you found yourself with such a great team, and there was you guys organising it all and got this, you know, fantastic script and this really cool sort of like genre filmmaking. You know, you just found yourself with 4 or 5 sort of little melting pots of different indie filmmakers, all under the Deranged banner, you know, putting horror pieces together. And I remember even when I then went on and did other things after, it was awesome to see more Deranged projects keep cropping up with filmmakers you knew getting involved. And that, I think, is what you're talking about, the spirit of independence for this series. That is what you guys at the time, I remember, embodying. That there's all these independent filmmakers with just the passion and spirit for what they do. Stick them all together and see what works. What you guys did early on when I was working was something I will always cherish and always remember. You don't have to pay me for saying that. It's just, it embodies the spirit of independent filmmaking.